guess, knowing you have an allocation.
If you approve the budget tonight, we would just go forth and find the best, product and spend the money. We wouldn't come back to the board. I mean, we could come back and report what we purchased, but we have the authority to go ahead and purchase under 100,000 if you approve the budget.
And a plug-in hybrid wouldn't work either, because even downtown, you don't have a plug-in capacity.
Say that again?
A plug-in
Oh,
hybrid?
a plug-in hybrid?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's something we could explore.
I just think whenever we can,
Yeah, absolutely.
we should be looking at EV or hybrid
Yes.
at worst. Okay.
Understood.
Thank you.
Mayor Hernandez.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question. In the 75,000 that are being budgeted, it says that it's going to use LC top funding for it, or it?
Oh, for the
to do-
signage, for
Yes.
the COA? Yeah.
Yes,
we-
and then I know I've had conversations regarding some of that funding, and it says here, we'll use TDA funding until STA releases a staff funding, and I just wanted to inquire the status of that conversation.
STA is planning a meeting with us. I'm assuming it's going to be next week because the funding group meets.
Yeah, it's on
yeah.
the agenda for the funding group meeting next week.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sorry, I guess I should also point out, I had an error in my report. The fiscal impact says there's no increase in the capital budget. Should have said 250,000.
Please.
Thank you, Mayor Young. I do appreciate you recommending used vehicles, but I don't consider it. I think that we'll be back here again. It's a risk. If we're going to buy it right. I buy used vehicles sometimes and I end up spending more money. So I decide that it's very important when we're responsible for individuals that we should give them the best quality, and that should be new, because it comes with a lot of warranties when you purchase new. Just something to think
True.
about.
Anyone else? Do we have anyone wishing to make public comment?
Through the chair, no speakers at this time.
All right. Well, we have a recommendation to approve the amendment to the FY 2025-26 capital budget as presented in Attachment A. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Young?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Scott?
Yes.
Director Matulak?
Aye.
Director Mashburn? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8C. This is the revised financial forecast for fiscal year 26-27 through 35-36. Christina?
Yep, me again. So I don't normally bring a revised forecast, but we had. They go off again? Jeez. There were so many things up in the air last month that we've had some resolution to, so I thought I'd bring back a revised forecast to you. Very, very good news to report. MTC met with us, and they've decided how to allocate ongoing ARM $3, and they've decided to give us $3 million a year versus the $1 million we've been receiving. So an additional $2 million just came our way annually for Solano Express. This really, really takes the pressure off of our fiscal cliff for Solano Express. It really pushes it out several years. So we've got some time to do some planning. We don't need to look at cutting service at this time, and STA can allocate the state transit assistance funds, the amount that they were planning on giving us, and still be able to fund Solano Express fully for at least the next 5-6 years, maybe 7. I don't know why the microphone keeps clicking off. Okay. The next thing is federal money. Once again, the FTA announced their annual appropriations. We, as a small operator, they look to see if our operating metrics, how they compare to large operators, and for each metric you beat, you receive additional federal money. We beat 4 of the 6 metrics, so we got an additional $2 million of federal 5307 dollars allocated to us. This happened last year as well, so we're very excited. The money is just going to be sitting there waiting for us to decide how we want to spend it, and we work with MTC to determine how to program the money in the future. And of course, I come back to the board to talk about how we're going to program that money. Most likely, we'll hold on to it for future bus purchases unless there's a major other capital need. And then the other thing that I changed in the forecast was fuel. As we talked about last time, after I'd prepared the forecast, things started going crazy with fuel prices. So I've built in additional fuel costs. I've put in extra contingency and carried that forward. Who knows what's going to happen, but just to know that the current forecast now, takes into account, increased fuel costs. That may be maintained for some time, and then I dropped it back down a couple years out, a little bit. So that's all that got changed in the operating. For capital, I was going to again discuss what we actually discussed earlier, and that was our $12.5 million grant that's still not obligated, and this chance that we may need to change propulsion methods. We've already had that conversation, but that's also detailed out in your report. The attachments in your report, I gave you a couple updated summaries that break everything down by mode, so you can see revenue and expenses for Solano Express, local, and paratransit. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
First of all, it is so unusual to hear that we have found money instead of we
Like
found
money
a
just
deficit.
fell out of the sky in the same week. It was.
So congratulations to
Yeah.
the team for finding the money and earning that, and appreciate it. I have just a couple of questions, and I'll turn it over to the board.
Sure.
The farebox revenue from 26, 27, all the way out, the 10-year forecast, continues to be flat. You don't see at any point where we might have the opportunity to be either raising fare or...
For local, I was just
local.
being conservative. Certainly, that would be something we'd look at in the future. MTC's made a really big push as part of their regional network management to try to get us to have a consistent local fare. Right now, we are about the same for, I'd say, more the outer line operators at $2. Some people are still lower than we are. Some of the agencies like AC Transit and County Connection, they're higher. It's something we could certainly look at in the future. We just get so little fare. I mean, in the big scheme of things, it's so little fare revenue that when we do an increase, it never equates to very much money coming back to us on the local routes. But certainly something we always will be assessing in the future. I did build a fare increase in, though, for Solano Express.
Okay.
And we're working with our funding partners and STA, and we're looking, and we will be bringing that back to the board in the next couple months, our proposal, because we haven't raised those fares in over 10 years, and we know bridge tolls have continued to go up, and they're going to continue to go up for the next 4 or 5 years. So we're looking at a multi-year increase to approve at once, so it could be more gradual.
Because in the executive director's report, we saw the green line continuing to go up, ridership continuing to grow.
Oh, for the youth
And
ridership, yeah.
Just hoping that we can get a correlation between that and potentially additional revenue at the fare box. Staying on the express budget, in 32, 33, and then 33, 34, there's a big jump in the amount of the forecast for STAF funding.
Correct.
What was that based on?
So what this is based on is I take all the available funding sources that we know of, and what the difference to balance the budget is state transit assistance funds. It's typically what's been happening. So the good news is I thought we needed more money earlier. Now with the extra RM3 money, we've got a good 7 years where we can probably fund with our existing state transit assistance funds, or not even taking the full amount. The problem is we really have to watch that funding source because it has been declining the last couple of years because it's based on diesel taxes. So if that pot of money declines farther, then that's where, it becomes an issue where STA has to decide if they're going to cut mobility programs and shift more money to Solano Express, or what are we going to do? So, but we've got a good 5 to 7 years to figure that out. And then beyond that, yes, we will need additional money to fund at the same service levels, assuming expenses continue to rise at the rates they have been.
Thank you for that.
Or we find another funding source.
And just one other question. In the total operating expense by mode, we go to the subtotal and it says all other direct expenses and overhead. And that's, what does other mean? What's included in other?
Oh, what's other? It's
I know what other means.
it's everything else besides our transit contract and parts and fuel. So it's literally everything. It's all of our facility costs, security, marketing, insurance, Soltrans staff salaries. Yeah.
Okay, so if we come back and want to have that listed out, you can supply that to us.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I'm
in the
not
next
asking for it
item,
now.
you'll see next year's budget, and it is broken out to that level. I just don't usually do it for the forecast, but I could.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Are there, Mayor Young?
Thanks. Or Cookie too. So a couple things. First of all, really good news, whatever role you had in making that, great work. The money from the RM3, it can be used for operations, I assume? And
It is operating money.
It is operating
It's
money.
only
and it-
operating.
and it can
This
be used
particular is just operating.
specifically or strictly for Solano Express.
Yes.
So does that mean that, well, two questions. Does that mean that the cities who previously were using their TDA money to pay for a portion of Solano Express would actually be paying less money because we have this other money to offset it?
It's an interesting question. I did not assume that because we didn't really have enough state transit assistance funds to fund the difference. Like, we were already having an issue on how we were going to fund Solano Express fully. So
Right.
RM3 took that out of the equation, but I left everybody's TDA contributions as we had assumed they would be.
Well, that will be a question.
That could be a question when you meet with the funding group next week. Though they may ask that same question, that, well, let's put in more
And it-
state transit assistance
And it
funds
would
and less
certainly
TDA.
help if we could, reduce the amount that we're asking from these cities in terms of our relation between STA and Soltrans and the
Yeah.
various providers or, other companies that are out there. The RM2 money, or RM3 money, so the tolls went up by $1. That accounts for some of the extra money, but they didn't double or triple. And our amount went from 1 million to 3 million. So who lost in this? Where did that extra 2 million come out of whose
I don't
pocket?
think anybody lost. I think after RM3 went through all of the various appeals process, and MTC was holding on to this pot of money, and they were determining how to allocate the operating portion of the dollars, and they gave us the minimum. I don't know how they came up with $1 million for us. I don't know if though in those 2 or 3 years that we got the $1 million, if they were using the money for somebody else or if it was set aside in reserves. But ongoing, they knew they had to come up with a formula to distribute the full amount of operating set aside.
So do we think that this will be an ongoing
Yes.
allocation?
Yes, it's supposed to be it's supposed to be the new permanent ongoing formula. And it's actually could vary. Unlike our RM2 that have been fixed, RM3 is based on ridership. So if we grow ridership and the other people who qualify for RM3 don't also increase ridership, then we could get more money.
Because I was certainly in the camp of, we ought to look at raising the fares on Solano Express, because I think as gas gets more expensive, as tolls keep
Yeah.
going up, you're going to get more riders, you would think. But you don't want to necessarily stop that by raising fares if, in fact, we're going to see more riders, and if we have enough money from this to offset some of our operating costs. So I'm sort of getting back more towards the middle, and, well, maybe should we or should we not? I think that's a question for the whole board going forward. Because if we haven't raised them forever, that's one thing, but if we want to continue to boost ridership, maybe that would be counterproductive. Is there a chance that this money might mean, well, I guess I already asked that question. I'm specific to Benicia. Would there be a chance that we could get back some of our TDA money to spend on other transportation stuff in Benicia, since we're going to be spending or getting more money through RM3, and maybe
Right.
you're not going to need as much from us, or all of it from us?
I think that's going to be a decision at the STA board, because they will have to decide for the overall funding plan for Solano Express if they want to put more state transit assistance funds to Solano Express and therefore lower the TDA contributions. So that would be, have to be a discussion at that board.
But it might make things more collegial between the two agencies if we're not looking. And so you think that this provides enough money to push out our fiscal cliff 10 years? Is that right? Am I reading that right?
It depends, again, on the state transit assistance funds. I think we're fine for 5 years, hopefully, probably 7, and beyond that, then
Okay.
it's really going to be a matter of how much state money, or is there going to be another funding source by then? I mean, everybody's in this position of needing an additional operating funding source, so we never know what's going to happen.
You'll be reporting this to STA at their next meeting about the better finances?
We could, I mean, we'll be presenting this, we'll be talking to the consortium and the funding
But it might be,
partners.
with our STA chair here, it might be worth talking about so that everybody on the board understands that the finances have changed in a positive way, and that,
Sure, okay.
I just think it might be worth everybody knowing this. Okay, thank you.
I agree. I think that with the standing agenda item that addresses Soltrans, specifically Solano Express, to the STA board, it's a really great note to be made of the work and effort of this agency, and securing healthier finances for this particular line, which is definitely for all of us shaking our heads, like that's a really good position to be in. I actually was going to say about the intercity funding agreement, where the conversations around the funding formula are to take place. We had already noted that there needs to be an opportunity to revisit that funding formula, but I wasn't necessarily looking at it to be reduced, because I actually think it's not funding enough. It's actually the opposite problem that we have with that funding formula. And so it may not be something that is updated for this next fiscal year. I don't see that happening, but I do think it's worthy of discussion and opportunity to figure out what is the appropriate funding formula for long-term sustainability, especially as the landscape for transportation funding continues to be a variable that we don't control. We just don't really know, especially with the diesel and gas taxes coming down that support some of that funding. And so I do think that we need to continue to look at that funding formula and figure out what is the appropriate way to fund. This upcoming year gives us an opportunity to do that work, because the required surveys that help provide some of that data that says how the funding formula by population, by origin point is being suspended for this next fiscal year. So it's the perfect time to just put a pause, look at the funding formula, look at what actually makes sense for long-term sustainability before that funding survey comes up again in the next fiscal year. So that was my comment, because I think I think we're all saying the same thing. Like, we do need to look at it. We need to look at what it's appropriate, and then what's long-term sustainable that doesn't vary so much, is my opinion.
Councilmember?
Thank you so much, because that was that last point that you mentioned, Mayor, and this was what I was going to mention, but but kudos to finding money and to make sure that we can protect our ridership. I do have a little concern about raising because we've been challenged from every which way, you know, from our life, and so I would reconsider that thought. Just a little bit down the road, you know, we can start planning, but just think about the average household and what that finance may be affected to them. So just, that's all I wanted to say, but kudos for all that funding.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment? Manny, anyone wishing to make public comment?
Through the chair, yes, we do have one member of the public online that would like to make a comment.
Okay,
Ron Grassi, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Ron Grassi with STA. Christina, I just want to commend you, and I know a lot of this credit must also go to Commissioner Mashburn. Helping get the $3 million of RM3 is a huge success, and that does solve our fiscal cliff, or the immediate fiscal cliff. The unknown still that nobody has mentioned yet is there is still the ballot measure coming up in November. So that is a fiscal cliff that's affecting a lot of the larger operators. And the unknown is what will happen if that doesn't pass. So we still have to be cautious on what's happening with that. And then the other question I have is I was analyzing this report, which shows 1.8 million of STAF, which I don't see that as a problem. But in your next report, it shows 3.5. So I don't know, maybe you just forgot to update the numbers or whatnot on the proposed budget. So thank you.
No other speakers at this time, Chair.
Thank you for those comments, Ron.
Through the chair, can you address that concern?
Oh, the concern about the ballot measure? Oh, yeah, that was in my forecast last month we talked about. That is another big unknown that we need to watch, and we are watching obviously closely, because if that ballot measure doesn't pass, we don't know what MTC might do about shuffling funding around to make sure the bigger operators don't fail. So it's definitely a concern. I mean, the ballot measure isn't supposed to impact us directly, but it may have downstream effects. So something to watch.
Thank you, Christina. All right. We don't have anyone else, Manny?
Through the chair, no other speakers at this time.
Thank you. We have a recommendation to receive the revised financial forecast for 26, 27 through 35, 36. We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Please call the roll.
Director Young?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Aye.
Director Scott?
Aye.
Director Matulak?
Aye.
Director Mashburn? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to item 8D, the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating and the capital budget. And this is Christina.
Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. So this is just the, I should go back. This is just the proposed budget. This is just a draft for you to comment on. We will come back in May with the final budget. So take a look at where we're at right now. We've got operating revenue of 23.9 million. That's up from last year of 23.1 million. Those are all the funding sources in a visual form for you. And then the next slide, I break it down between paratransit and Sloan Express. You can see the big differences is we use a lot of federal money for our local and paratransit. Because we're a small operator, we're allowed to use federal money for operations. But Sloan Express, we don't use any federal money at this point, but we get a substantial amount of bridge toll money as well as the state transit assistance funds. Here's a visual of our operating expenses in total. We've got 5 major cost drivers that make up about 90% of our budget. Makes it challenging because a lot of those are costs that they just are what they are in order to run service at the levels that we're running. And I will go into more detail. So the biggest cost driver, and you've heard this many times, is our contracted transit service. It's our contract with TransDev. That's 60% of our overall budget. It covers the drivers, the road supervisors, dispatch, mechanics, customer service, the bus utility workers, and the management team. It's a lot. They have over 100 employees. The contract is split into two components. There's a variable rate per hour that we pay for every revenue hour of service, and that covers basically the driver wages and benefits. And then we pay a fixed fee that covers everything else in the contract. The amount of fixed fee has gone up 3.8%. That was a built-in escalation in the contract. The variable rate went up 4% for fixed route, and then a much smaller amount of total dollars we spent on paratransit. That went up actually higher. A lot of that was based on the new union contract that the TransDev had negotiated a few years ago. So these were all rates that have been built into the contract. Okay, fuel pricing. So I did a historical fuel price trend for the last 3 years to show what we've been paying per gallon. CNG, obviously that's therms that we purchase, but we convert it to diesel gallon equivalents. So this is, you know, I guess you could say apples to apples chart of everything's in gallons here. You can see that CNG, other than the really weird spike in January of 2023, that happened to everybody. Probably we've put it out of our memory. Other than that, gas prices have stayed lower than diesel and unleaded. But you can see there at the end of the graph where the prices just start skyrocketing for our diesel and unleaded. We're paying about $30,000 a month more in diesel than we were a couple months ago. One thing we're doing is we're talked to our contractor about, because we have such a mixed fleet right now, we are, like our express fleet is 2/3 CNG and about 1/3 diesel. We've asked them to prioritize using the CNG buses instead of the diesel buses if they can. And same with the local fleet. We've got our diesel hybrids, but we also have the new electric buses. So we're trying to utilize the electric buses. We just received 5 of the next 7, and they're not even, you know, we're not in service yet. We're still trying to get clipper loaded and all the other equipment. So hoping in the next couple months those will be on the road, and we can limit the amount of diesel buses that we have to put out there. Then next, the third biggest cost driver is 11% of our budget, and it's been 11% for years, is Soltrans staff salaries. Actually, I realized I had a typo. There's 15 actual full-time employees. We hired our DevOps guy, Paul, so we have 15 full-time employees at this point. There's no vacancies. The base budget has been increased for potential merit increases July 1st, which are yet to be determined. The budget's actually flat versus the current year budget because the current year actuals are coming in below budget. We had a vacancy early on, and we had 2 or 3 employees on medical leave during the year that are back now. So we had some budget savings this year. We also, at the first part of the year, had made some additional pension contributions and that's how we got our pension plan fully funded, and so we don't have to make those contributions. We're in good shape there. So we're able to come in below budget this year, so I kept the budget flat. Proposed operating expenses by mode. This just summarizes what's in the packet on what the expenses are for each of the 3 modes. There's more detail in your packet. This is the cost per hour. Caution, people might worry about that Solana Express hourly cost. Our funding partners don't pay that fully allocated cost. This is the cost if, as I do everything according to generally accepted accounting principles, but the funding partners don't pay for all of the expenses for us that we allocate to Solid Express, primarily our park and rides and our transit centers, which also includes security costs. I also usually, we also usually take out the fuel contingency, and we do a true up later on. Okay, and with that, I'm happy to, if you want me to stop, we can answer questions about the operating budget before we move to capital, or I could continue.
Good. I have a couple quick questions. I see we have some questions down there. On page, could you go back to page 22? Thank you.
Yes.
Just to make a point.
Yes.
The fares represent 3% of the fare box, represents 3% for local, right?
Yes.
And on Solano Express, it's 11.
Well, that actually includes paratransit, so it might be skewing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. My point is that, going back to our earlier comment about increases in fares, while I know we want to be very judicious and careful in here, it is very low
It is.
on the recovery, particularly local and paratransit. Now, that may be because that segment has a limited ability to pay, and we're taking that into consideration, obviously. But if, as things change and we recognize that we need to be able to look for more revenue, that might be an opportunity, especially when we're spending $30,000 more.
I think this number is actually skewed lower because of our youth ride-free pilot. They're not paying fares. However, we are getting grant money to cover that, which would be included in the gray pie, the state money. So it's not included in the fare money. Now, I could, for just purposes of reporting, show it as fare revenue because it's replacing,
Okay.
so that it gives us a better picture of what our fare revenue would have looked like if we had been charging youth fares. Of course, ridership has gone up because we're zero, so it's a trade-off.
Finally, and then I'll pass it over to the questions. How nearly is nearly funded on our pension?
We brought that in, I think, January. It was, I think we are like 98% funded, 99% funded. Yeah.
Highly jealous.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier when you've got a plan that's only 15 years old as opposed to these legacy plans that have been around. So,
Thank you.
but we want to keep it that way.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, two questions. Can you remind me what our reserve funded policy is?
The only policy we have is that we keep at least 3 months of operating expenses in reserves.
And we're good there?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I figured from the beginning, we've been good there for my time in service. I think the work here has been very conservative in the reserve fund policy, but I just couldn't remember the policy itself. Then the next piece I have is I mentioned this at the last STA board meeting, and I just want to bring that comment to this board, which is I noted at the last board meeting that the numbers that we have for Solano Express as the budget differs for what we see there than what we see here. And so I feel like we have some board members, we're seeing two different sets of numbers for the exact same service. My request there, as my request here to our executive director, just as much as over there, was we have to figure out a way to get the numbers. How do we get that where both boards are seeing the exact same numbers for Solano Express? And I know that there's ongoing work to help get us there, but I just bringing that comment forward for the record. The next piece is you noted that for Solano Express, the cost associated to the line does not include overhead like the security, the maintenance, or like some of those pieces are not included. And I realize that you have all done a really great job of breaking down the cost per revenue hour piece, but I'm wondering if there's a way to also demonstrate the costs associated to that line that are part of that overhead that are more explicitly named, that is not necessarily just what we're seeing. I know it's high level mentioned, but not exactly some of the other pieces that you were mentioning just right now in your presentation, that I think that like a one-pager that says that it's nothing for us right now, but I think in the future for a presentation to the STA board members who have Solano Express as part of their service that don't get to see the other side of the story that you present to us. So there's a part of the story missing, which is all of those pluses that we don't see on the operational costs that are part of the story as well. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay, I do have that, and I do share that with the funding partners. I don't typically bring it to the board, but you're right, sometimes the STA consortium will just get attached to the packet and go to the STA board as well. So I can certainly bring that same level of detail to you as well.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Seeing no more lights on, let's continue.
Sorry.
Oh, Mayor Young.
On the expense side, back to the question on advertising and marketing. Last year, we spent $152,000. Our budget, though, is $245,000, almost $100,000 more than we actually spent last year. To date, we've spent less than $100,000, yet you're projecting that we're going to spend the full $225,000. So in the next 4 months.
It's the COA is the big thing. We've got to do a lot of marketing to let everybody know your bus stops are changing, your routes are changing. There's just going to be a whole lot of advertising spending. So that's why it's going to be heavy in the back end of this year, and it's going to flow into the beginning of next year. Additionally, if we think we're going to be doing a fare increase for Solano Express, we've got to do outreach and marketing for that next year as well. So I built that in. There's one other thing, when you brought that up earlier, I wanted to bring to your attention, and I don't think we're actually following it, but one of the previous Soltrans boards back when actually had asked us to ensure that 1% of our operating budget at a minimum was spent on marketing. That's as the budget has gone up, that would be a pretty substantial amount of money. So we haven't been necessarily keeping to that, but certainly that's what we're looking for feedback on what's the board's priorities on this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to capital projects. Most of what's in the capital budget are carryover projects that were already approved in this year or even prior years. We've got the 7 of the 14 buses that we had put a purchase order in almost 2.5 years ago. This is the federal grant that we may need to pivot and change from battery electric to something else. Then we've got a couple technology projects, the paratransit software implementation that we assume will start now, but it will carry over into next year. The bus stops and wayfinding project. We'll have a better idea of how much is going to carry over. Obviously, a lot of that will be spent in this fiscal year. Same with the facilities. We're currently starting the camera replacement, but we're hedging that it's going to roll potentially into next year. I'm not sure. Again, this is draft. I'm hoping by next month we'll have a better idea on some of these projects. And then one thing we never even started this year because we had so many other projects going on is the visioning process for the land we purchased. In the back of our heads, we thought most likely we need to expand our yard and potentially put in a hydrogen fueling station for future hydrogen buses. Well, with the current administration, everything's on pause when it comes to hydrogen. So we're not quite sure how to move forward, and that's something we need to look at this year is what is our plan for moving to zero emissions based on the CARB mandate, and how we're going to best utilize the land, or what do we need to use that land for to meet that mandate.
And we're talking about the land on Broadway.
Yeah, the land that we bought on Broadway.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it says land purchased, but it's land purchased, maybe.
Oh, purchased,
past
yes. Okay, I will clarify that.
We're not going
yes.
to buy more land.
Or
That's
new
not-
land or whatever. Yeah, the land we already purchased.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then we don't have a lot of new projects. The vehicle maintenance and shop equipment is pretty much a standard budget item we have every year. I always have about $500,000 in vehicle components. There's, engines, major components, transmissions, things like that. There's only one small piece of shop equipment in here. It's like $15,000 for some floor jacks. But everything else is major components for vehicles that we may or may not need. We've gotten very lucky this year. We didn't spend the $500,000. Knock on wood, we've only had one CNG engine go down this year. But we always budget for more. Facilities, we've got the shop rolling doors taking a lot of use. We're trying to stagger replacing of those. We replaced 2 this year. We're hoping we want to replace 2 next year. And then we should be good for a while. And then we've got a couple minor technology projects. Mostly it's moving servers around and rebuilding server racks and things like that to utilize our space better. Things are tight. So, and then to address Ron Grossi's question about the STAF money, I think what happened there is I left the STAF funding that the State Transit Assistance Funds that had been proposed to be spent on Solon Express next year from the reserves. But then we got the RM3 money. So I need to go back and make sure my current year budget is marrying up with the forecast. So I will make those corrections for next month.
On the vehicle maintenance, are we finding that electric vehicles, the electric buses are having any maintenance issues?
We only got the 5 new buses last year, and I don't think one bus is having an issue, but that's a warranty issue, and so Gillig keeps taking it back, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with it. The other 4, I don't believe we've had any issues. We've been running the BYD electric buses for years, and we've had issues, but all of it's been under warranty, so we haven't had to pay anything. They're supposed to be less money to maintain, so we will find out.
Anyone else have a question?
Yes. Yes, thank you so much for this report. I do have a concern, and it's been brought up in multiple visits that I have within the community. We want to know why our buses and our bus stops are not uniformed. Some is green, some is brown, some look old, and and then they're also noticing that it seems to be in certain parts of the community. And in order for us to have pride, we want to see all of the uniform bus. And I said that as a chair pack, that we need to see that, right? And I'm just really concerned about that. And then particular on my street, I'm just going to say my street for right now, is we have a shelter location, but around the corner we have the bus stop itself, and that bus stop is not sheltered. And I asked, why can't we remove that one? Because people are sitting there literally thinking that that's the bus stop, even though you do have signage. I've seen it. But when it's raining, they got the umbrella, they're standing there, and I'm like, ma'am, are you waiting for the bus? She said, yes. She said, the bus just went around, and she's thinking that's a different bus. And it does make sense because, if you're new to the community, that makes sense. So I'm wondering why we don't put the shelter and I was told before because it wasn't wide enough. It's a double sidewalk. So I'm just asking versus where it's at now, it's a single sidewalk. So just asking if we could please put the shelter there, but also if we could please look into the future to make all of our bus stops uniformed, and especially buses that people have to wait for a long time. There should be seats. I mean, just think about that, especially our new upcoming schedule where people have to walk 15 minutes to the doggone bus stop. Just thinking out loud. Thank you.
I just wanted to address that. The reason that all the bus stops aren't uniform is because that would be a huge expense. The way that we replace amenities at bus stops is based off when they're damaged or outdated or unsafe. We replace them 1 or 2 at a time. To replace the whole system would be really expensive. Right now, during the COA, though, we are looking to repaint lots of the shelters that are older that we're going to reuse. And then also, there aren't seats at every bus stop because we have an amenity class policy that's based off of ridership.
Okay, that is kind of confusing, but when I look at other communities, I see uniformed. And sometimes you wonder what that is about. It's about that priority, setting that whole pride throughout the city of Vallejo. And if we can find money for tech, we should find money for people to appreciate that. Because without ridership, we can't afford nothing, right? So if people don't feel pride, it sends a mixed message. So I especially when I notice it in various communities, one community looks better than the other. And if we want to paint them green, fine, paint them green. But we need to do something with more pride. Especially because I wasn't even expecting to hear that. Sometimes we hear more potholes and this and that, but I'm starting to hear more concerns with maybe because gas is so high, people are riding the bus, so they're noticing it more. Probably that's the reasoning.
There will be lots of updates with the COA, and then once that's done, we'll reevaluate what extra amenities we have based off of the stops that are going away and change those out at some of the other stops as well.
Thank you. And just for Beth, could you please go visit that, on Porter and Magazine?
Yeah, I know exactly what this stop is.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Because the sun actually sits there, versus on Porter, the sun doesn't sit there, but it does sit on, thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else making comment? Manny, do we have anyone on public comment?
Through the chair, no speakers at this time.
All right.
And there's
So
no motion.
we have a
on this one.
recommendation to receive the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating and capital budgets as shown in attachments A and B and provide feedback to staff. The report has been received, and seeing no further discussion, the agenda item is closed. Thank you
I'd like to
all.
make that motion.
We'll now move into the non-action informational, and these are the discussion items. And we will be talking about the system-wide redesign update from my neighbor, Mandy.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This is actually the presentation that you were supposed to receive last month, preparing you for the system-wide redesign service change that's coming up on August 2nd. So I'm going to talk a little bit in past tense, but also bring you back to present tense throughout this presentation. So next slide. Thank you, Manny. So we kicked off our stakeholder open house on April 1st. It was not an April Fool's Day joke. We reserved the JFK Library from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., and we invited all the stakeholders that were a part of the initial process back in 2024, who helped us find gaps in transportation, who came with us with feedback from their community members of what they want in transit, what they need. We worked them through, Alma and Terry were present at that, worked them through a game of how to understand what you can do with your transit funding and what you can do with the buses that are available to help everyone understand where the confines of our budget and how we want to do what's the most with the budget that we have. So those same people have been now to 4 stakeholder meetings and have been a part of this process, taking us through the beginning, seeing the concepts, and then seeing the final concepts presented. So it was a open house. It wasn't a presentation. I wasn't standing in front of them talking at a group of people and telling them this is what's happened, this is what we're doing. We divided it up into 5 stations, and people came in. Between those, we did not have them stay there for the whole 4 hours, but they could come when their schedule permitted and talk to staff one-on-one about their specific community, their specific route, their specific mode, if they're only Solano Express riders, if they were only local riders. So they came through and they went through each station so that they could really have an understanding of the changes. And then at the very end was our partners from MTC with the regional wayfinding and mapping project to talk about what we're doing in partnership with the COA and how the new bus blades will look. And then at the end, they got a packet of flyers, QR codes, information, summary of the changes so that they could take it back to their community, their constituents, and share that information and help us be educators for the upcoming COA changes. So we had about 29 people come on April 1st, and that kind of kicked us off. When I made this is the schedule for the outreach, but since then, we've already hosted 4 outreach events. One at the Vallejo Transit Center. This Tuesday, Christina and BC were at Walnut Creek BART. Last night, I was at the Fairfield Transportation Center, and then tonight, I'll be attending the Glen Cove Community Meeting, talking about the changes. And at each of the event, we've talked about 45 people at each of those events. So we've already touched almost 150 people. But don't worry, we're not doing just 5 events. We have 89 hours currently scheduled of outreach throughout Solano County, and in front of you is the table of the breakdown of hours by community. This is an ever-growing list. If you have events, if you have community groups, if you have someone who is willing to listen to me, please share those with me. We are growing the list. It's online on our website. There's a big banner when you get to the homepage, and then it has its own page. And so I'll be updating that list and adding more community events as we go through and as you bring them to my attention. What's not included in these hours is our partnership with the Vallejo Unified School District. I believe they're going to come to the next board meeting and talk to you about that partnership and how we're working together, but they are planning to do events at the schools that are closing down and helping provide resources to the communities, to the parents, to the guardians of the students who are changing schools. And one of the tables is going to be Soltrans, helping people get to school and how their new travel pattern would change. If they live downtown, maybe their new school is on Daniels and they'll take the Route 4, where before they took the Route 3 to South Vallejo. So I have not received those dates yet and where they're going to be, but I'm waiting to hear back, and those will be included in this list as we carry on. So not only am I out in the community and making sure that people are aware of these changes, but all of this is on board the buses in visual screens with QR codes. And then as we get closer, there'll be verbal announcements letting people know that the schedules are available and that there's going to be a service change on August 2nd. Last night when we were out at the Fairfield Transit Center, it was so reassuring to let people know. They're like, oh, what's changing now? And don't worry, it's happening in August. Here's a summary. We're going to give you time to absorb all the changes and then plan your schedule so that you know what's happening. But they were very thankful that we're already talking about this, even though it feels like August is far away. It is not. It's right around the corner. And then another big part of our budget and part of this COA is the partnership we're doing with all of the newspapers and making sure that it's everywhere. Every time you open a newspaper, I want people to know that these changes are happening and that there is a link and a QR code directing them to all the information. So we have ads in Vallejo Times-Herald. There'll be these kind of generic COA ads that system-wide redesign is coming, but as we get closer to August, it will have specific local information in there. It'll have specific, in Vacaville, you will see the blue line, very prominent, that's changing to the Route 40 and what changes are happening. Fairfield, the same thing with the red line, the new Route 60, the green line and the blue line, and then Benicia will have yellow line specific, and then again in there. So lots and lots of advertising, as Christina said. I know we're under budget, but I'm going to blow it out of the water for the next couple months. And that's it for now. I'm hoping to bring back next month pictures of the actual events so you could see what we're doing in the community and how those events are going. And I'm happy to answer any questions or take feedback for events that are coming up.
Well, thank you. I think we're all really excited about finally getting to the transformative change that we believe the COA is going to do as far as meeting the needs of our riders. And it's exciting to know that we're this close. And great job, and thank you for everything. And I look forward to being flooded with social media and newspapers, et cetera. And with that, Councilmember?
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned the issue of, with the Vallejo City Unified Schools, the 3 schools closing. So did I hear you correctly? You're allocating buses for students that are having to go, because so the fact that I work for the school district, so I have that real understanding there. So it's my understanding the school district is actually provides, so is this a supplemental service?
Yeah, we have a school tripper and our fixed route service. So I met with the school district after our concepts were approved, and we kind of met together in what the school district buses do and what the Soltrans fixed route buses do. We also have a school tripper. So we're working together what our service will, and how we'll move kids in the fixed route service, and then what gaps still exist. Oh, I just blinked. What's that community north of town? Hidden Brook. An example, we don't have fixed route service in Hidden Brook. Your resources, the district resources, will still commute those students that need to be. So you still have resources in anywhere where the fixed route service is not an option, or there's a gap in service. Mare Island is another example. That's where your resources. The goal is that as many people as possible could use the fixed route service, so that your resources can be used for those real actual gaps in transportation.
Thank you for that clarification, because this sounds new to me working in the school district. So has this been shared publicly at a school board meeting, or because I bring that up just because we have a newly formed, it's over a year old now, is a 2x2, the city council and our school district. And so this would be a great presentation that we currently have something scheduled for next Thursday, April 23rd. So if you're maybe available, we could potentially get you on the agenda to help clarify this, because I think that would be great news for a lot of the parents that are being negatively impacted with the school closures. So we can talk offline to see if we can make that happen.
Yes, that'd be great. Last year we did present to the school board, and we went to one of the 2x2 meetings. So it's appropriate for us to come back and share that information.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's just move down the line, Councilmember.
That was okay. He addressed it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Question on the renaming of the routes. I understand that MTC wants us to sort of move towards these numerical ones instead of colors, I guess.
Correct.
Normally, well, I don't want to say normally, lots of times when you see buses, they have the destination up on top. And I'm not sure why we're using Solano. That doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. I mean, obviously it's our county, but it's not a destination per se. Why don't, for example, for the blue line or the green line, why doesn't it say Vacaville, Concord, or something like that?
Great question. That little tiny name in that bubble, we only are allowed, I believe, 11 characters for just the naming in all of our technology. But on the head sign, it will very much say Vacaville, Benicia, Concord, North Concord. It will spell out on the head sign exactly where that bus is going. This is the Clipper naming, so we're only allowed a certain amount of characters, and so that's why the hope was to have something that would give you a little bit of sense of what the bus is doing, going through Solano County to Concord, starting in Vallejo, going to Concord. But that is not the whole story on the schedules. It will have all the destinations
Because
on the head sign.
The yellow line makes sense, Vallejo to Concord. That's sort of the route. ECDN, I know what it means. I don't think anybody else probably knows what ECDN means. So I assume on the green line and the red line, it would say El Cerrito?
Correct. Yes.
But for our purposes here, and what is ECDN-EX?
El Cerrito del Norte Express.
Oh, Express on the green line.
Yes.
Okay, and that's just sort of an internal thing that we're going to use.
Correct. Yeah. It's only inside all the technology. It's only allowed. I don't even know if it's alphanumeric. I think it's just alpha, and we only are allowed 14 characters.
Good. Thank
Good
you.
question.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes, thank you. First, congratulations on a really great open house. It was really great energy. A lot of people that came through. Have to commend everybody who was tabling. I was fascinated by the presentation for the wayfinding from MTC and the actual explanation of why all of those changes are happening. And I think that the more that we're able to share that information out broadly, I think will be helpful. great intern that you all have. I mean, she explained everything to me, and I was like, I didn't even know we were doing all that. Like, so it was just really great to see some of our youth and the work that's taking place. I posted some of the key takeaways from that evening in my social networks and spread it out, and I did receive some feedback. So I took pictures of exactly like the individual line, the green line, the blue line, the red line. Those really affect Suisun City specifically. And I received a message actually today, which was they really liked it, but my picture was a little grainy. They tried to look for it online and couldn't find those exact images online. And they just thought it was really well done. It was such an easy way to share with their network of people that they know are writers, but it wasn't the best quality, and I realized I couldn't find it either. So that's just the only thing that I have. Everything else looked great. Thank you.
I can totally post those. Great idea. Thank you.
Councilmember?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that, Mayor Hernandez from MTC, because Gordon Henson, he did say he appreciate the wonderful meeting that you had at STA for here in Vallejo. Well, I do want to ask for future, can we be invited as a board?
Great question. So when we started the COA, we had a ad hoc committee, which was Terry and Alma, a part of that. And so we didn't include all of you for, what is the Brown Act? Yes, we had to keep it under 3, so.
But everyone can attend
Yes.
any of the farmers market.
Correct. Yes.
Meetings
Yes.
that are going to be going on.
Yes. Yes.
I still think we could have all been invited, especially since it's 4 hours. And as long as we don't talk to one another, we're okay. Because all of us as a board member attend places, we just don't talk to each other about whatever it is. Just so you know for future reference.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor?
There we go. I got help from a professional over here. It's probably a little too late, but I noticed on the slide, one of the places you was fixing to get some hours in was Dixon, and there was a whopping 2 hours in Dixon. Dixon Mayfair's coming up, and that's an opportunity to reach not just folks from Dixon, but literally thousands, with an S, of people who are residents of Solano County a day are in Dixon Mayfair. So if you had the opportunity to set a bus up or a table and have people come through, that's a great way to build some ridership there. I mean, aside from maybe the Christmas tree lighting in Vacaville, that's probably the single largest community event that goes on in the county as a draw. No, it doesn't even come close to the Mayfair for numbers. I mean, it's a fun fair and all, but it don't come close to the Mayfair for numbers. So.
I'll look and see if we could staff that.
And if you can't get in and need some help, give me a holler. I can ask the sheriff. Maybe he'll give you guys a courtesy table down there at his booth, because he's always got one right inside the gate.
Okay, thank you.
Let him do that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Mayor.
you, Mitch. All right, no more questions. Let's see, any public comment?
Chair, no speakers on this item at this time.
All right. Well, this is an informational item. Thank you very much. We look forward to the implementation. We'll move on to 9B, which is the transit-oriented development, the TOD for the Soltrans Curtola Park and Ride Hub. Lemon lot update. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Hello, Chair and members of the board. This is an update on transit-oriented development, or TOD, for Soltrans at the Curtola Park and Ride Hub and the Lemon Lot. This is an aerial view of Curtola Park and Ride and the Lemon Lot as they are currently. This is how they look today. There are 600 parking spots for riders and park and ride participants. Where the star is on the picture is the transit island that houses a ticket office and a restroom, as well as 6 bus bays that have benches, trash cans, and display screens. Routes that serve the park and ride include Route 3, the Red Line, the Yellow Line, and the SFO employee shuttle. Daily average parking is about 122 cars per day, which is about 20% use of the lot. The cost to maintain the lot is just over $230,000 a year, and the parking revenue only covers about $30,000 a year, which is about 13.5%. Here's a different view to show the space that we have to work with. In March 2025, staff asked the board to explore transit-oriented development at the site. After meeting with Caltrans twice, it was clear that we would need some vision representation to move the conversation along in order for Caltrans to release the land use permitting. This presentation represents possible TOD at Curtola Park and Ride, including the limit lot. The direction given to the vision architect was to preserve the transit island as is and retain some of or close to the same amount of parking that currently exists. The request was to design housing and community space. This is the welcoming to Vallejo from 80 and 780. The design should welcome the community and improve the surrounding neighborhoods. The renderings in this presentation are not actual plans, just possibilities of what we could offer the community based off of the existing space. If Caltrans changes the land use agreement, actual plans and drawings will be developed. What we received was a phased approach to developing the site to include multiple-story modular housing, an open space playground, community space, and potential for a grocery store in what currently is a food desert. Included in the board packet was the full result from the Yes Community Architects, which is the firm that produced these designs. Here's an overview of the potential for the ground floors that would be below the housing. The portion of the rendering that says bus depot is where the current transit island portion of Curtola is and would remain. The potential for this site could be maintained parking on bottom floors and exposed surface area, community rooms, cafe, grocery, green space, and the potential for over 550 housing units all surrounding the transit center. Again, this is just a vision board exploring the possibilities. We will be using these designs to discuss with Caltrans and get the land permitting updates to allow Soltrans to actually explore TOD at the site. And with this, any questions?
All right, let me just set the stage for a moment. This started just as a discussion about a piece of land that was sitting there in a transit hub being underutilized. And the concept was, what could we vision on that property? What could we do working with the city of Vallejo? What could we do working with the state? We know that there's a significant movement towards creating transit hubs with affordable housing. And so we started talking about it and talking with Mayor Soares and talking obviously to Caltrans, as you heard, to see, is there a Johnny Appleseed moment here? Is there planting seeds and saying, if we water it, can we make something happen? And what we found is that it appears as though there is interest and in order to move from the kind of visioning phase to something that could actually be reviewed, we needed to do some exploratory work. And that is the point of what you just saw. And this would be a unique opportunity for Vallejo, unique opportunity for riders that are coming in, affordable housing opportunities. It's a hunk of land that is so underutilized that we thought, what can we do? And so we're finding that there is some interest. The question is it worth pursuing? Does the board want to look at things like this and say, is there funding for it? Who's going to fund it? I mean, there's probably 1,000 questions that would be attached to it. Right now, we're at ground zero, saying, we've got a piece of land, could we do something with it?
Thank you, Chair. And first question is, have you had conversations with the planning department here with the city of Vallejo?
No, we haven't. It's not at that stage yet. We got the go-ahead from the board. Mayor Source was excited about it, but 55% of the property was given to us by Caltrans, and in that deed, it says that we can only use it for transit, and transit-oriented development wouldn't be included in that, so we just need them to write something giving us permission to move forward.
And I asked that question because I would recommend having those conversations as a pre-planning and pre-programming standpoint, just for the fact that, because I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission. So there are a lot of conversations of developments that we're looking similar to these type of community benefits type of programs. And so this is where, as opposed to being a reactionary one, if it can be more of a proactive one, that would be something that I would recommend. And I've got connections. I can have you connect you with the right people. Let's just put it that way for that, and would be happy to help have those help facilitate some of those conversations. And because the planning department is in the process of because we're going through our general plan right now and looking to update, and this would be a great opportunity to create a specific plan for that corridor right there.
That would be really awesome. This is new for us. We're looking at what other agencies have done, and then there's also like a federal mandate. They want to encourage TOD and housing density, so any help you could give would be awesome.
And just out of curiosity, have you floated this out to any potential developers or anything? Nothing yet? Okay,
Not
that's
yet.
what I figured. You're just in the inception phase. You're in the inception phase, so I get it. Thank you.
So I'm excited because this is my district. When I saw this, I just said, oh, it's my birthday present. This is beautiful. And I sit there all the time and I'm like, this land is just going to waste. So this is exciting. I would like to be part of any opportunity I can to be part of this. Thank you. Be very proud of yourself. This is beautiful.
Thanks. A couple of questions to Councilmember Matulak's questions about the zoning. It's currently zoned public facilities, and so clearly it would have to be rezoned to accommodate housing. Properties become much more valuable and much more easy to develop if the zoning is in place. So one of the things that, if we want to proceed with this, that we would probably want the city to consider is rezoning this on their own rather than waiting for a developer to come forward and wanting to go through that entitlement process ahead of time. I think it would ease the development substantially. And if you've got the ability to just rezone, we went through as part of our housing element, we rezoned lots of land all over the place to make it easier and to save the developers the cost of having to do it themselves. So I think if you could think about this particular property in a sense of rezoning it to multifamily, that would save a lot of people a lot of money and a lot of time.
And that speaks exactly to having those pre-conversations with the planning department.
Right.
Because you can also combine this with the housing and urban development, our HUD portion of it. So that is a dual purpose of having these pre-conversations, so that way, instead of the reactionary, we can be proactive from dual fronts of something like this. And and once again, with the entitlements, the fact it takes time, the sooner we can have these conversations, the sooner we can actually put things in place and avoid any because we'd have to go through the whole sequence, all that other EIRs and all that other stuff. So it's better to start those early rather than later.
But it's going to make it much more marketable to a developer.
Even more so, reason, and obviously the fact that we're also working through our getting a new economic development director, this would be a great opportunity for him to get in at ground zero to have those conversations, not only with planning, but also with the building department and also with HUD, to our housing department, to see how do we make this a combined community benefit project for that's not only citywide but regional benefit.
So I've got some questions about and I understand it's just a sketch at this point, it's just sort of a concept that has been put forward, but it described itself as affordable housing. So that has a very specific meaning. It's only affordable if there is some kind of subsidy that helps with the rent, or the purchase of these things. So the use of the word affordable, did that mean anything for the purposes of this concept?
So we would have to get a consultant to help with this. There was just ideas that we had. I am aware in some fact that when there is subsidized housing, that oftentimes investors will pay for credits for that, and that's how you get subsidized housing. So that was an idea. Lots of people who are in, low-income housing and subsidized housing take the bus. They're not the only people that take the bus, but we want to make sure that we have those people close to transportation.
And I understand that Vallejo does not have an inclusionary housing ordinance.
We're working on it, though.
Okay, so without it, there is no real requirement that this could be 100% market rate without any affordable housing part of it, without having some kind of requirement on the city's part that they do this. The sketch, the design, is that 3 stories over parking or 4 stories?
I believe it's 4 stories.
So that's pretty dense for the site. I understand that's why people want, they want to develop as much as they can to maximize their ability to make money on it. But I just think that will certainly cause some eyebrows to raise. The number of units, close to 600 units on that site, 572 units is a lot for the number of acres we're talking about. The last point I wanted to make is in the unit mix. These are shown as equally divided between studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. I think what the real need is in this community and all over Solano County is family housing. It's not studios. So I would like to see more 3 bedrooms and fewer studios and 1s. I realize that changes the number of total units you're going to get, but I think if we're really trying to serve the needs of the community, it's for family housing. And so that would be my comment, is if, when we get down the road, we ought to think about who is it we're trying to serve here.
Right.
And studios and 1 bedrooms, there's single people, young people. That's certainly a market, and there's certainly people that you want to attract to Vallejo, but the existing population is more family-oriented.
We would definitely go to the board when we're coming up with these plans, but when it comes to subsidized housing, the idea of single people only taking studios and 1 bedrooms is a little different, because say you had a 3-person family, you wouldn't qualify for 3 bedrooms. It would be 2 or 1, so it's very different when it comes to subsidized housing.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes. Where is the process for this board? Is it to provide direction to continue, and then provide direction to connect with the development department for the city? I think the reason I'm asking is, I think for me what helps is role clarity, is what role regarding a project like this does this board play? And at one point, there's a piece there that the board doesn't influence, which is something that the city does or Caltrans does. And so I think where it's easier for us to follow what role this board plays, our entry points and areas that are most beneficial for us in prep for the meetings to understand what we should bring to the table as good feedback. So for today, I think the ask really is to present and to provide direction.
Yeah, we want to know if the board wants to continue in this process while we contact Caltrans to see if it's even possible.
Okay. Yeah, I think if that's what's being asked of us, I would say, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to clarify. Your role is your property owner. So,
Okay.
so ultimately, the decision stops here. So you have all say. You have, even, well, let me just say, you have all say so long as Caltrans.
Okay.
So if Caltrans goes along with the concept, then it's up to you. Do you want to see market housing? Do you want to see something else? So ultimately, staff's bringing a recommendation here, but it's your decision as to what pencils out for Soltrans.
Okay.
What we can get Caltrans to agree to. So does that kind of more answer your question?
That does help, because I didn't know what role the city played.
City has jurisdiction, city has land use jurisdiction, so you still got to get through them with regards to the change in the general plan and all the entitlements. But it's whether or not again, you as the body here deciding whether or not you want to go through that process, or should the city say, you can do it, but the conditions are X, Y, Z, and you like X, but you don't like Y and Z, you can say no, and then you
Okay.
just don't do it.
Right,
That is super helpful. Go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think our role is to be the catalyst to see that there is a piece of property that did not exist in the housing element. So it wasn't, that property wasn't identified as an opportunity. So what we're saying is, we think that we can broker a project and be in the position of providing a piece of property that can be in the better interest of the overall community and serve our interest of feeding transit riders into San Francisco, into the northern jobs in northern Solano, et cetera. So acting as a catalyst for change.
I love that. I'll provide some feedback on the housing piece. One of the things that I'm very mindful around, especially with high-density housing, is what role we play in housing in general as community leaders, which is to diversify the housing inventory. When we say affordable housing, it's actually affordable for all, meaning that you do think about the economic spectrum. Someone may enter at a Section 8 housing voucher, and someone may enter at a market rate voucher, and you mix, which goes back to the inclusionary type of housing, is what ensures that we are not concentrating poverty, and what ensures that we provide different entry points for people that still need access to transportation, like a hub, but you still are addressing someone who is a young professional, or a small, family, or someone who needs a Section 8 voucher, right? So being able to diversify the housing inventory is well done through most likely a development agreement in regards to what you're saying, asking the developer to do. But I've seen in different areas, different states that I visited, where the concentration of poverty by just having 600 plus units all be Section 8 is not beneficial to the community as a whole. And I think many of us have been exposed to the data that shows a young child exposed to different types of people around them provides greater access of understanding of like different career paths and opportunities. So there's a lot of data out there that I think supports that. So for me, I think being able to diversify what this type of housing inventory will look like from both the Section 8 and market rate levels, and depending on where they are, but mixing it up a little bit. So it goes back to Mayor Young's point of inclusionary housing as a model. That's all I have.
So that was what I was about to say. First, we want to make sure the land is mixed use. Second, we want mixed income housing. I think that is important. Don't forget, not only there's Section 8, but, below market rate, at market rate, and then there's tax credit as well. So I do agree that we should consider some of the property if is to be like a 3-bedroom home. But I do see that studios are much needed too, because a lot of our individuals, you remember the day you can get your own place, now you have to roommate. And I think parents appreciate it too, get Jimmy and Jane out the house. So I think that it has to be properly used as called mixed use. Because we could also look at, I heard grocery stores. One of the things in my apartment complex, if you look at the corner, I live right up here, we do not have a drugstore, we do not have a post office. In fact, we got to pack the kids up like we're going on a trip just to go get our medication. So this right here is exciting. So we want to consider the land to be mixed use, and the housing could be mixed income housing. And that could be any above market rate to below market rate.
Mayor Young, and then we'll come back here.
Thanks. I think that the addition of a grocery store and daycare is great. It's needed. It would certainly add value to the property and the neighborhood. It's not clear at all, and maybe it doesn't need to be at this point, whether we're talking about rentals or condos. I think that's clearly something that's going to have to be established. I agree with Councilwoman Gordon that mixed income is preferred, but if you're doing all rentals and you're doing tax credits, you have less flexibility with how you can do mixed income, but I think it's worth pursuing. And then to Mayor Hernandez's question about what's our role and where do we go next, I would think that particularly since we have, even though he's an alternate, the council member who's a conduit to the Planning Commission and the Planning Department, to me, the best step is let's find out from the city, are they open to even talking about this? Because that's going to be a long process to get through this rezoning. And we want to start that, and we want to ask the city, would you be willing to rezone this? We're not a developer. We do own it, but we don't necessarily want to have to, as a nonprofit, as a governmental entity, we don't necessarily want to have to pay the same fees that everybody else would be required to do as part of a rezone application. Would the city be willing to entertain the idea of beginning to look at a rezoning of this property for multifamily without necessarily specifically saying that we want rental versus ownership or how many units we're talking about, but just to start the process. We know it's going to be multifamily. We know it's going to be several hundred units. Can we at least start down the road to get that entitlement in place? Because nothing happens without it, and once you have it, everything becomes a lot easier to do.
So I'll stick my neck out there, not speaking for the city, and I'll say, yes, we are open to that, having that conversation. And the fact that we're at this super early stage of this conceptual of what we're looking at here, my recommendation of having gone through this being my bread and butter for over 30 years, is starting off and looking at this as Mayor Hernandez pointed out, as we as an entity of looking at this as a development agreement with the city, starting that out to where you get the right people in to talk about this. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if this will not pencil out, it's never going to happen. So we can talk about grocery stores here, affordable housing, mixed-use housing, whatever we want to put on there, but if you don't have the right individuals guiding that conversation to get this, we're going to be talking around in circles all day long. So one of my other recommendations is the fact we're at this very early stage. We may want to set up a subcommittee that actually focuses on, that has that expertise to kind of start this conversation, because bringing it up on a public meeting like this will take these meetings will be 6 hours long. So, once again, at this early stage, I recommend have these initial conversations with the city, and depending on what this board is willing to share with the city of what the vision is. Because once again, I'm looking at this as a forward-thinking type of project, because it's not just a transit. This is a transformational hub beyond just transit. Just listening to all of this conversation, this can be a earth-shattering, very positive, not just for Vallejo, but for the whole region. I mean, 80 and 780 right there. Curtola. This is the center hub of a lot of the transit, and just locally here in the Bay Area. So we have an opportunity here to do something great, and I wouldn't want us to go about it the wrong way. And I would recommend doing it right the first time around, bringing in the right people, starting it off as looking at this with a development agreement with the city, and that would kickstart a lot of the conversation with planning, zoning, and rezoning, and because that starts the conversation of, if something needs to be changed, now is the time to start that, before we get to the full entitlements and finding out that no, we can't do that. So it's just, once again, we're at this early stage. Let's go about it methodically and correctly, and those would be my recommendations.
Yeah, and I think the point is that, and I can feel it and I can hear it from everyone who's made a comment, that there's an idea here. We don't know, we don't have all the answers. In fact, we don't have any idea of really how this is going to transfer out, how it's going to look in 5-10 years. But we know that this is a unique opportunity So we went ahead and started to pencil it out and say, this is what it could look like. And the comments that we're getting are exactly what I think we expected. And that is great, because we're hoping for enthusiasm, excitement, changing, transformative change right here. So, council member?
I just love this board because we all thinking the same. I wrote everything down and everybody said it for me, but I'm thinking that we should create a ad hoc committee so that we could, if they say no here, we'll find another way to say yes somewhere else, right? I can see this coming into fruition sooner than we think, because the fact that it's an idea, and I think everyone who came up with this, you'd be very proud of yourself, 100%. And I would love to be part of this ad hoc committee.
Well, I think where we are right now.
I'm just
and we have
putting
to
it
ask
out there for, just in case when you do, that's all.
I think we need to ask for public comment, and then we can, this is an informational item only. We just brought it here, getting kind of a sense. I think then we're going to come back with a next step. But is there anyone wishing to make public comment?
Through the chair, no members of the public signed up to speak on this item at this time.
Okay. So this is an informational item. Staff will come back with some recommendations on what the next steps would be.
And then we can vote on it?
And then we can start making some decisions on how we move forward. It's very unusual that we have this kind of excitement up here. All right, so we'll now move to non-discussion items, the state legislative report.
Amazing.
I'm sorry?
It's not discussion.
Okay. Board of Directors comments?
Yes, Terry. I was hoping that you would report on the incident that happened at the middle school with the students and the school tripper with the racist kids, and the work that you did. And I think would be of interest certainly to the rest of the body, and if you're willing to talk about it.
Okay. Well, we had a couple of incidents at the Benicia Middle School. And you've heard many times about the cameras that we have inside the buses. And so everything that I'm about to say was recorded. And there were a number of middle school boys who were making some very racial and derogatory comments about the driver. And they were in a bully situation with a couple of young ladies that were also riding the bus. And so Beth reached out to Brett Nelson, who, by the way, you just appointed to a city commission, who is the principal of the middle school, and explained the situation, and it continued again. And
I just want to make clarification. It was TransDev that reached out and reported to us.
TransDev reached out, and pointed out what was going on. So I ended up going over to the middle school and having a meeting with the principal and with the parents, and basically saying that this was unacceptable behavior. And TransDev is more than welcome to come up and talk.
This is Angie Johnson. She's a new safety manager, so she doesn't really have too much knowledge of the.
Okay, so and made comments that we have banned the one child, the one boy, and that banned him for the rest of the year. He cannot ride any bus in Benicia. And that has settled it down. It has not happened again. But, went over there and confronted, parents and had to talk about parenting. Didn't know that was my job. But it worked out, and thank you for letting me bring that up.
I think it's an important lesson. I want to thank TransDev for the driver for coming forward and talking about it. I want to thank the chair for his leadership in addressing this. I think banning, was it just one kid? I thought there was more than one kid.
One kid right
Okay.
now.
And I assume, what do we have, like a picture on the bus so we know not to pick him up, or I don't know how that's.
No, that's up to the school. They handle that.
They've got it figured out.
Yeah.
And hopefully the idea now that the parents are going to have to figure out another way to get their kid to school might be a lesson, but this is beyond our ability to control what people are doing with their kids, and it's an unfortunate situation, but I think we handled it in the right way.
Thank you. All right, if there, please.
There was some concerns regarding, that was shared at the city council about bus being cut. I think that people are now getting the message that we put out there a year ago, and that buses service are being cut or shaved. But again, we want to make sure the community is aware, and we have already talked about that, but just wanted to point that out because the person who brought it up just came into the room. So we just want to make sure that that people are aware of what's moving forward and what we're doing as Soltrans board regarding that. Also, too, Rise Vallejo ribbon cutting and carnival is going to be tomorrow. I do have flyers for each of you in Spanish and English, so I hope to see that you all can come. To that, it's going to be in South Vallejo, in District 6. It's tomorrow at 1450. Misspell it for those who are listening, is CORONEL Avenue. It is the old, what school is that? Thank you, Beverly Hills. I always keep wanting to say Davison, but Beverly Hills. So please come out. It is a great day of fun for the family. The school is marvelous. This was one of many partnership, including former city council and also former board supervisor Aaron Hannigan. But this would be wonderful to come out and support. Yeah, that's my report.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't so much Soltrans specific, but is STA related to where on Sunday, Dan Meany Elementary School, where I actually work at, is holding a bike rodeo going on from 10 to 2. So just throwing it out there, anybody in the community or anyone needing to be a part of that, getting their bike fixed, I guess they're handing out free bike helmets to students and anyone. So, and if you, even for adults, if you have a bike that needs to be repaired, my understanding they're going to be there to help repair those bikes. So if anybody is available.
Free bike giveaways.
Apparently that's part of it too. So, so yeah, Dan Meany, for those that may not be aware, Dan Meany is located at 1530 Lorenzo Drive and in Vallejo. So that is my short report.
Thank you. If there's any other comments, we're going to recess into, I'm getting the no.
We are actually at time at 5:30, so.
So we have a hard stop. And we can't go to closed session.
Correct.
Okay.
That's back there.
We're going to do closed session, but we're getting kicked out.
Okay.
But nobody's going to be in closed session. Why can't we have a closed session?
Adjourn the meeting.
Can I ask a quick question? Clarifying, they don't need that back room? Yeah. So we could still have it.
So we will recess into closed session in the conference room behind us. Is that okay? All right. A softer one.